Hello, welcome to Sunday at 7, and as usual we're working our way through Montessori's 1946 London lectures, but today we are on lecture 25, which is expansive education. So the last couple of weeks I've done it a little bit differently. I have written some notes and then found quotes to back up the text, and lots of people have messaged me to say they really like that, so I thought I would do similar today for you. So it's only your feedback that shapes what I do, so if you can comment as well, that would be fabulous. And remember, each time you comment, it helps my work spread further, which brings more people to my page and more people get to learn about Montessori with me for free, which is fabulous. So, expansive education, the book starts by saying, many modern psychologists take the view, which they try to prove to everyone, that children before 5 years of age are not ready to go to school. They try to show that schools are not needed before that age, but they know nothing about young children below this age. They look at children between 5 and 6 years of age and, knowing nothing of these psychic beings, find them to be very bright and in possession of culture. This is a striking and marvellous fact, because these children have acquired all these things without a teacher. Why then do children of this age know so much? There's widespread prejudice against imparting knowledge at this age. But we know, don't we, that actually through this absorbent mind phase, children do learn so much. So when we say children don't need school, and many of us believe that children don't need school, what is it about school that they don't need? So for most of us, children don't need to be sat at a desk. It's the formal idea that they sit in rows or in groups around tables with pencil and paper, and they're made to learn in a school-like style. So, but school doesn't have to be like that, does it? I mean, I run my home ed group, which is my little home ed school, and the children all say they're coming to school, but it's all hands-on Montessori learning. So we really need to challenge what school is that children don't need. And we know, don't we, that children learn from hands-on experience. And schools could be like that, and they could meet their needs. But in terms of this book, when we're saying they don't need school, they don't need to be sat in rows with pencils and papers being forced to write when they're not ready to, or being forced to learn their letters when they haven't gone through the process to make them ready for that either. So in this book then, The Hidden Power of Young Children, many people think that children under 6 don't know much and they're just waiting for school to start. We hear it, don't we? The child's school ready. Well, the child's been learning ready since the day they're born. We are born, aren't we, equipped with all the skills we need to gradually learn everything we need to know in life. So Montessori disagreed with this then. She saw that young children already carry a lot of knowledge, a huge amount of wisdom. And by the time the child is 5 or 6, they've already absorbed so much, an enormous amount from the environment. And what they've learned is very much dependent on the quality of the experiences we've given them. So children have learned language, they've learned culture, they've learned gross and fine motor skill, their movements, they've learned social habits, all without any formal teaching. These things have not been learnt through sitting at a desk, so no school-like learning. It's absorbed, it's happened through experience. And Montessori then calls this, doesn't she, the absorbent mind. These children have learned an enormous amount, the biggest amount in such a short period of time. So Montessori's quote for this is, children before 6 years of age are not to be looked upon as empty. They have acquired all these things without a teacher. Well, we know, don't we, that actually parents or the people a child is first with, you are their first and most important educator. Now, sadly, it doesn't always mean that the parents are the best, but in most cases, parents are so keen for their children to learn that they do give them wonderful experiences, and the parents are the first, the most important, and the best teacher their child ever has. But there are odd cases, where that doesn't actually apply. But for most of you, especially if your parents are listening, you so want the right things for your child. You so want best for your child that you do go out there and find the best opportunities for them, and you do the absolute best you can. So those first early years are the most important years of life, and you are the teacher. The child is also teaching themselves, aren't they? So if we think about it, a child learns their home language perfectly before school from their parents, their family, their friends. Not by studying it, but simply by living in a really good environment. And the quality of the language a child has by the age of 5 very much depends on the quality of language that they hear. Do they have parents who sit and read to them, talk to them, explain things, answer their questions? Or are they sat in front of an iPad and I'm too busy, go away, come back later, I don't know, stop asking questions, don't ask me why? Parenting is such an important part of a child's life, and it's what really helps them develop all of their skills. And we particularly see it with language skills. So talking to your child, having conversations, explaining things. So then Montessori reminds us in the absorbent mind phase, children between birth and 6, they're on a special mission. They're here to adapt to the world around them. And they're fearless explorers at this age, aren't they? Our little tots will just run away from us. And we think, come back, there's rules. They're not aware there are rules. They just want to be off and running and exploring. And we have to risk assess and make sure, that the car park is safe and they're not running where they shouldn't, because they have no boundaries. They are just there. They have this freedom. They can move quickly now, and they're just going, and they're going to explore. Children at this age are not worried about the past. They're not worried about the future. They very much are living in the present. They see everything, they hear everything, they touch everything, they start to identify everything. I was in the garden with Roman today and he heard a noise in the distance and he shouted, "Grandma, Grandma, I can hear the emergency helicopter." And he knew from the sound of it, because he's heard it before, that meant there's been an accident somewhere, there's a yellow helicopter in the sky somewhere, there's an emergency. He's learnt to discriminate different sounds in his brain, and he knows the emergency helicopter from other helicopters that sometimes go over. So we're in an area where there's quite a few planes. We have American air bases near us, even though we're in the UK, and you learn to tell the difference, to educate your mind so you know what's going on around you through your hearing. And nobody's taught him that. He's absorbed it because we have explained things to him and we've spoken to him and we've named the different aircrafts and the different helicopters. So when he hears that now, he has that information in his brain. He's absorbed it. He's absorbed the sounds. He's absorbed our explanations, and that's knowledge in there for life now. So everything the child sees, they hear, they touch, it all absorbs and helps them to be who they are. And a lovely Montessori quote for this is, "They know the present, not the past. They only absorb the present." And this is why our Montessori environments focus on offering real, meaningful experiences, because children naturally absorb whatever is in front of them. So everything then we put out into our classrooms is there for them to learn from. They're not reading about things from the past. We're not looking at things that might happen well into the future, because we don't always know. We're here in the here and now, learning skills to equip them for the future. And in time, they will learn about the past as well. So in here then, this expansive education, and Montessori talks about in the beginning, the child has the absorbent mind. And we've spoken before about how children learn, and they learn in reality, and they learn through our practical life and our sensorial. And once they've learned things in the real, they then start to be creative, don't they? And imagine what other things they can learn about too. So I'm not talking about fantasy imagination here. I'm talking about their own imagination, coming up with ideas that are not yet there, bringing in new things. And again, this relates to our human tendencies, doesn't it? As humans, we evolve and we think of new things and we solve problems and we come up with cures for things and new designs for buildings and different ways of doing things. And it's all part of our human being. It's what we do. It comes from our intelligence. So Montessori talks in this lecture about imagination and human progress. So she says, as a child grows, their mind develops imagination. And Montessori reminds us that imagination, like I've just said, is not fantasy. It's a really powerful tool for progress of the human race. So in the book, she talks about humanity's greatest achievements. They come, don't they, in science, in the art, in discoveries. It began with someone imagining something that was not yet visible, not yet there, a new come up with that are not yet there, and they have all come from somebody's imagination. So this is why, or one of the big reasons then, why in a Montessori classroom, when we do dressing up, we don't give children fantasy dressing up clothes from things such as Disney films or commercial things off the TV. So everybody says, oh, Montessori doesn't do imagination and creativity. There's nothing that's exercised the child's imagination or the child's creativity if I hand them a ready-made dress that's come from a high street store based on a film. That was somebody else's imagination. That is somebody else's creativity. It's not the child's creativity. For the child to be creative, I need to give the child fabrics and belts and things that they can make an amazing outfit of at their ability, different colours, different designs, so they can dress up and say to me, I'm a Princess Tiger and my name is, because they're things that have come out of their brain. I am, and they can tell me something. I am a dog spaceman, and I go woof and I go into space, and I've made my rocket and I wear this silver outfit with red stripes on it, and they've made it out of scarves and belts and things that were in the basket. That's the child using their imagination. Those are the sorts of things that a Montessori teacher wants to inspire. She wants to make resources available that enable children to create. One of the biggest moments of this in my teaching career was many years ago, and I'm going to say the child would be in her 20s now. And within the creative drawers and resources, I had a big drawer of fabrics. And this child got the fabrics out. She was 4 years old, and she took the whole table. So it was around at least a metre square. It was one of those hexagonal tables, actually. It's at least a metre across. And I watched her from a distance as she took the fabrics out and she started to fold them and place them on the table. And to start with, I thought she'd turned them into a folding activity, but I kept quiet and I kept away and I kept watching. And eventually when I looked, I could see the fabric starting to form a person. And when she'd finished her work and she stepped back, she looked and then she came and found me. And she said, Miss Sandra, come and see what I've made. And she took me to the table and she had made a whole person and their outfit out of all different fabrics. And the level of planning it must have taken in her brain, the creativity inside her that appeared on that table with these beautifully folded fabrics. She'd made a hat and a top and a skirt, and I think she had a belt made out of fabric and shoes. It was just incredible to think a 4-year-old child had imagined all of that from our fabrics that she knew were in the drawer, but she'd not done that with them before. That is creativity. That is taking your brain and coming up with a new idea that nobody else has done. Those things are really much valued in the Montessori classroom. That came from her brain and her heart. And that was a huge achievement. You know, if she goes on in the future, I don't know what she does now. I could probably find out. She could be some amazing fashion designer because she had those opportunities when she was a little girl to be creative and the freedom to come up with her own ideas, which were highly valued. So this imagination, when we start to see in our children, it's really important that we enable it, that we make sure the resources are there, that we don't provide them with things that are actually just from somebody else's imagination. So Montessori said that we have to, really guide children's imaginations so that they discover things for themselves and, not just to escape into fairy tales. Yeah, reading fairy tales can be lovely too, but it's also lovely to come up with your own ideas and make your own stories and your own things. And Montessori's quote for this that I found was, "Progress comes not from pleasure, it comes from effort. Progress is the most important thing for humanity, especially in the light of discoveries of man." And it is important, isn't it, that we keep progressing. Life is never going to stand still. And if we just think back how much life has changed even in the last 100 years, if we brought back somebody now from the 1920s, they wouldn't recognise how we live, would they? Humanity has progressed on so much, things change. So education then can't limit children to just memorising facts and copying other people, because otherwise we're just going to stand still. Education has to prepare children to have a creative imagination, to be able to construct, to be able to problem solve, and to be able to think of things that we've not yet experienced. So giving them the skills to do that and the confidence to do that is what we're doing with our type of education. So our roles then as the prepared adult, first of all, we have to understand this need in the children, that we're not just imparting facts and thinking that we already know it all and we're going to give it to them and share it with them, because we don't know what their lives are going to be like, and we don't know what's going to happen in the future, what's going to happen in science or construction or fashion. That's for our children to discover and for them to create. And it's what will make their lives interesting as well, coming up with new things. Life's boring if we just copy things that are already there. It doesn't tax our brains at all. So Montessori warned adults then, don't underestimate children. Don't underestimate their potential. Don't think they're weak, that they need constant instruction. They don't. Children already have the power to build themselves. We just need to provide those opportunities. Our job isn't to fill them with information, it's to prepare them. It's to give them an environment full of meaningful experiences. And remember, that's not just our classroom, because many of you are going to be parents at home that don't have a classroom, and that doesn't matter. You can still be Montessori in your philosophy. You can still respect your child, understand to give your child creative opportunities, to go out, to explore their environment, to answer their questions, to put provocations there that get them to ask new questions and to lead their learning. So they've found a toadstool. So we don't say, oh, don't touch it, it's poisonous, stamp on it and walk off. Wow, how did it grow down there then? Why is it growing down there? How do you think they spread? I wonder if we can find any more of them. Are there different types? And this is when you can bring technology into it and get your phone out and get the search app. I think it's the search one that my Rachel uses, and say, wow, well, this is what it is. And it's got this long name. Can we say this name? Maybe we can clap it. I wonder what other ones we might find. I remember with Freddie, my oldest grandchild, a long time ago, our garden opens onto our neighbour's garden, and she has very old apple trees and they're starting to rot. And on them sometimes a massive fungus will grow. And I didn't know what it was, and Freddie found it. Grandma, what's this? So the first thing we don't say is, don't touch it, it's poisonous. I went, wow, I don't know. That's an amazing. Let's find out about it. And I actually think I sent the photographs to one of my friends as well. And it was a horsehoof fungus. I can't remember its real name. Debbie Dormouse, if you're watching, I'm sure you will know what it is. So we did some research on it, and we found that years ago, they would have taken it off the tree, taken it to bits, taken the flesh from inside it. They would have added urine to it, dried it out, and then it was the way they started their fires. And I was like, this is incredible, Freddie. So this is like our first stage kindling. And that led on to, so how do we light a fire? And I carry a piece of hacksaw blade and a flint in my bag, like all good guiders do. And so this is my flint to start my fire that I would use from my horsehoof fungus, and then I need the little sticks from the hawthorn bush. And all of a sudden we've done an outdoor adventure and learnt how to light fires as well. And that all comes from a child finding something, and we don't go, don't touch it, it's poisonous. We, if things really are dangerous, people say, oh, let's just step back and we can find out what it is. But don't ever miss those amazing learning opportunities that happen, especially in nature. I'm a huge fan of it. So then we've given this amazing environment, whatever environment it is. Today, our environment to learn in was the orchard. And I had been there several times before with Roman. And one day, when we went to the orchard, the apple trees were full, but there were also lots of wasps about. So I didn't say, come away, don't go there, it's dangerous because of the wasps. I knew to be respectful of the wasps. So I said to Roman, we have to be respectful of the wasps. We can stand and watch them. They don't want to sting us. What they want to do is they want to eat the apples. So as long as we don't disturb them on the tree, they will be fine. They're doing their work. They're eating the rotten apples. And as we stood there, Roman looked up into the tree and he saw an apple hanging there that was just the skin. There was just the red hollow skin hanging on the tree. And he saw a little hole in it, and he saw a wasp fly out of the hole. And I said, wow, Roman, that's amazing. Look, the wasps have eaten the apple from the inside, and all that's left hanging on the tree now is the skin of the apple. And we were so amazed that we just waited and watched for a little while, and when there were no more wasps about, we took that apple down and we brought it home with us. And it now sits on the windowsill, and it's slowly caving in over time. And the amount of people that have come through the door and said, what's that on the windowsill? And when we explain that it's an apple that's been eaten by the wasps, everyone says, I've never seen that before. So how many of us have never stopped and looked long enough at an apple tree with lots of wasps on because we're just scared of getting stung? One of the most amazing photos I have of Rachel is actually a picture of her on our friend's farm eating an apple. And she has the apple to her mouth. She's eaten quite a lot round it. And on one side of the apple is a wasp eating it. And on the other side is Rachel taking a bite. And I just think that's the ultimate respect in nature for each other, that a wasp and a human can eat from an apple at the same time and both be happy. So these wonderful things really make memories in our children and help them learn respect for our planet as well, which is another huge part of Montessori, isn't it? Our education expands way outside of our classroom. It's everything around us. So Montessori says then that we don't fill children with information, but we prepare environments full of meaningful experiences. And we must respect the child's energy, their curiosity, and their natural drive to learn. A child doesn't want to be told, don't touch it, come away. And unless it's really dangerous, they're not words we're going to speak. The child wants to know why that's happening. What are the wasps doing on the tree? When we walked around the orchard today, we spent as much time looking at the apples on the ground and the decomposers as we did looking at the apples growing in the tree that we could pick and eat or take to the juicing machine, because there's just as much there to learn. So Montessori's quote then for this is, we make this great mistake. We think small children are inferior beings without intelligence. We must not put this into their heads. The child has intelligence. So we need to treat our young children as the intelligent beings they are. We need to understand their limitations. There's going to be so many things they haven't learned yet, but there's so many things that they're capable of learning. So when we give children freedom within our within our prepared environment, children grow in knowledge, they grow in independence, and they also grow in joy, don't they? Because children love to succeed. They love to be successful. They love to learn. They know they're getting cleverer. So Montessori's message then from this 1946 London lecture is still really, really relevant today. Children are not empty vessels. They're powerful builders of humanity. They are the future. They will be here when we're gone. When I used to train my staff, I always used to say to them, remember to be kind to the children, because they will be designing your nursing homes. So it's really important to remember, that what goes around comes around. We need to bring our children up to be kind, respectful of all people, of all generations, to be making the time to speak to everybody, because everybody has a value and things to share. So to remember then, the first years of life are the most important, because during this time, during this absorbent mind time, the mind is at work. It's laying the foundation for everything that comes later. And that foundation is in the language they learn, the physical abilities they gain, the intellect they grow, their attitude towards other people, their attitudes and belief in themselves, their personality. It's amazing what our young people have learned by the time they're 5 or 6 years of age. And in the UK, children can be going to school when they're just 4 years and a day old. They might be going and then just turning 5 because of the way our school years work, but they have already learnt so much. School is not the beginning of their learning, it's the beginning of their, in most cases, sit-down classroom learning. We're really lucky that in reception year there's still a lot of standing up and moving about, and some really wise year 1 teachers as well realise how much movement their children need, and they still provide that. It is the beginning of a more structured, lessons type classroom learning, but it's by no way the beginning of our child's learning. We're doing that in the home and in the nursery environment. We have those first incredible years where we can give the children so much information, so much opportunity, that they really then are set up for life in their attitudes towards their learning. So Montessori then, her closing quote for today: the child has this great potential. He must do this himself. No one else can do it for him. So remember then, Montessori doesn't see children as passive learners. They are active creators of culture and civilization. And we just need to make sure that we get our role right so that our children develop to their individual potential, to their potential working in groups, and their potential as a civilization too. Sadly, none of us have got it right yet, have we? There isn't peace on earth, and we can only hope that with each new child that comes, each person who learns about Montessori and spreads the message, that one day it might be big enough that we can actually impact on the world and have more peace too. And that comes from, doesn't it, Montessori's Education for Peace. It starts with every new child that's born. So every child's born perfect, every child's born with their opportunities. As the adults around them, the better our children's lives are going to be. So thank you for joining me this evening. I would love to read your comments. If you have sat and listened to this talk, thank you so much for coming along. See you all soon. Hope you've had a fab week. I hope everybody's able to live in peace. Take care of yourselves and your families. And thank you so much for coming along for half an hour to listen to me. Bye-bye, everybody.